All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a big one, Walter Isaacson's biography of Steve Jobs. But here's the thing, we're not just going to talk about the life of this tech icon. We're going to explore the incredible story behind the book itself. How did a legendary control freak end up with a biography he had zero, and I mean zero, control over?
You've probably heard this one, right? It's from that legendary Think Different campaign, and it just perfectly sums up Steve Jobs' whole public persona. This was the philosophy he built Apple on, and it's no accident that this is the quote that kicks off the biography. It totally sets the stage for the story of a guy who didn't just think he could change the world, he was absolutely certain he was going to.
And this is the exclusive, authorized biography of one of those crazy ones. Now, Walter Isaacson, this is a guy who's written about huge figures like Einstein and Ben Franklin. So he gets tapped for this, and he's given access that is just unprecedented. But really, it's the rules of that access, the specific terms, that make this book so fascinating and, honestly, a totally unique piece of history.
So that brings us to the big question, the central puzzle that kind of unlocks his whole thing. Steve Jobs was a famous control freak. So how in the world did he give up all control over his own life story? I mean, seriously, how? Well, let's dive in and find out.
Okay, so Section 1, how this book even happened. It's really a biography with no strings attached. And the origin story is, in a lot of ways, just as surprising as Jobs himself. It all started when Jobs was facing his own mortality. He wanted his kids to really, truly understand him, the father they didn't always get to see. And this pushed him towards an agreement that, for a guy like Steve Jobs, was anything but easy. I mean, just think about this for a second. Steve Jobs asked for no control over what was written. He put nothing, absolutely nothing, off limits. He didn't even have the right to read it before it was published. Let that sink in. This is the guy who obsessed over the exact curve of a corner on an iPhone, and he gave his biographer complete, total freedom. That one decision right from the get-go just gives this book this incredible foundation of credibility. So the whole foundation of the book was built on more than 40 really candid conversations with Jobs. We're talking over a period of 2 years, even as his health was getting worse. So this wasn't just, a bunch of interviews. It was, in many ways, a race against time. But Isaacson knew he couldn't just talk to Jobs. To get the full picture, he built this complete 360-degree view. He talked to over 100 other people. We're talking family, friends, adversaries, colleagues, the whole spectrum. And here's the crucial part. Jobs himself told every single one of them to be honest, to not hold back, even when talking about him. So you add it all up, what do you get? Zero. That's the amount of control Jobs had over the final book. And that's the key takeaway here. This combination of, deep personal access on one hand, and then absolutely zero editorial control on the other, that's almost unheard of. It's what makes this book such a rare, totally unvarnished record of his life. Okay, so now that we know how the book came to be, let's get into the story itself. The book paints his life as this, Isaacson calls it a riveting story of the roller coaster life and searingly intense personality. And man, what a roller coaster it was. And this timeline here really shows you the insane highs and lows. 1976, he founds Apple in his parents' garage. Just 4 years later, Apple goes public, and bam, he's worth over $250 million at 25 years old. But then, 1985, the crushing blow. He gets forced out of his own company. He spends the next decade kind of in the wilderness, founding Next and buying what will become Pixar, and all of that sets the stage for his triumphant return in 97, his second coming, where he brought a struggling Apple back from the brink and turned it into the most valuable company on the planet. But look, this book isn't just a list of things that happened. It does way more than that. Isaacson presents this really powerful central argument, a thesis really, about the connection between the man himself and the products he created. You could almost call it the unifying theory of Steve Jobs. And this quote from Isaacson nails it. His personality and products were interrelated, as if part of an integrated system. This right here, this is the core idea of the whole book. You can't separate the difficult, intense, sometimes impossible man from the beautiful, brilliant, simple products. They weren't two different things. They were one single integrated system. And this breakdown makes that connection so clear. On one side, you have his personality, his obsession for control, his searing intensity, that famous reality distortion field. And on the other side, his products. That obsession for control led directly to Apple's end-to-end integration of hardware and software. That searing intensity,
It fueled a passion for perfection that you can feel in every product. And that reality distortion field, well, that's how he convinced his teams they could do the impossible, which is how we ended up with such elegant, user-friendly simplicity. So where does that leave us after all the interviews, all the stories? How does Isaacson finally sum up Jobs' legacy? The book's final assessment is that he wasn't just a smart CEO or a great designer. No, it was something more, something deeper. Isaacson calls him a magician genius. And what does that mean? It's someone whose big insights seem to come out of nowhere. It's about intuition more than just raw mental horsepower. The book argues Jobs wasn't just incredibly smart. He was a genius whose biggest ideas were these imaginative leaps. They were instinctive, totally unexpected, and yeah, sometimes they felt like magic. And you can see the results of that genius right here. We're talking about six entire industries that he turned upside down. Personal computers, animated movies with Pixar, music with the iPod and iTunes, phones with the iPhone, tablet computing with the iPad, and even digital publishing. The book just lays out step by step how his drive and his passion totally revolutionized all of them, changing, well, everything about how we live and work. And this is really the ultimate takeaway. The book paints this incredible portrait of a guy who stood right at the intersection of art and technology, of the humanities and engineering. He was the one who could combine, as Isaacson puts it, the power of poetry and processors. And he did it in a way that no one had ever done before. And you could argue no one has really done since.
But the book isn't just a celebration, it's also presented as a cautionary tale, filled with lessons. It really doesn't pull any punches when it comes to the demons that drove Steve Jobs. And so it leaves us, the reader, with this really provocative question to wrestle with. Was his famously difficult personality, was that a necessary price for his genius? Or was it just a terrible flaw? The book gives you all the pieces, but it doesn't give you the answer. That final judgment, well, that's left up to you.